to the official podcast at contentchampion.com. Join our heroic quest to discover truly epic content marketing. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Loz James.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 19 of the Content Champion podcast. On the show this time, I'm delighted to welcome Bella Vasta, the dynamic owner of Bella's House and Pet Sitting. Not only has this enterprising lady built her own company from scratch since leaving college, but she's been so successful at growing her business online that she's also become a highly regarded web marketing consultant, helping small business owners with goal setting, using social media, and expanding their customer base. On top of all this, Bella runs a successful pet sitting podcast too. Bella uses content marketing in innovative ways to build her own business and teaches these methods to her consulting clients too. So I was looking forward to getting the lowdown on all her strategies. She really knows what she's doing with all this stuff, so our discussion was fascinating. Let's dive in. Thanks very much for coming on today, Bella.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now on the show today, we're going to discuss how you use content marketing to promote your local business, Bella's House and Pet Sitting, and how this led on to you starting a marketing firm, Jump Consulting. Before that though, my listeners love to hear our guest stories, so could you tell us a bit about yourself and the history of your pet sitting business, please?
I would love to, Loz. Way back when I was in college, which only was in about 2004, 2005, I had transferred colleges and I ended up living at my parents' home. While I was with my parents, they're Italian and my dad's a strict Italian father who wanted to give me a curfew. And I did not want that, of course. I mean, what junior, senior in college actually wants a curfew? Sure. So when I found out that my neighbors down the street were actually going to pay me to sleep over with their pets, not only was I shocked, but I also was excited. You see, our family pet used to go to the cheapest kennel next to the airport, and our cat, when we lived in Boston, used to go down the cellar with like a bag of food, and we'd leave her down there for 5 or 6 days, you know? Okay. It was a whole different mentality. So I started pet sitting for people in college, and at the time it was just a means to get out of my parents' home. But when I graduated, I tried to work for a Fortune 500 company and decided I really didn't like being tied to a 9 to 5. This is when you can go to lunch, you know, do this, do that, and sit in a cubicle. So I did everything I possibly could to make the business take off and thrive and support myself. And that's kind of how it all started. I realized that I had an entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. I kind of realized that when everyone was telling me, "You're going to do what?" And I was like, watch me. Yeah. You know, I really learned to embrace the word no and make the word no a motivator for me. I think a difference with a lot of people that kind of achieve things and don't achieve things is they embrace the word no. They don't let it make them fall down to the ground and then they can't get back up. You know, they jump up and they're like, all right, well, I'm going to do it a different way, you know? So it kind of snowballed, Loz. I graduated from college. I moved out of my home and I was doing it on my own for a while. And then I had a opportunity to go to an all expenses paid trip to Jamaica. Wow. It was during our most busiest time. And I was determined that I wasn't going to give up this opportunity. So I'd never been out of the country at the time, and I was really excited. So at the time, I had hired on one person and just took a leap of faith. And I said, well, what's the worst that could happen? And I wasn't scared of it. Now, naturally, it wasn't all roses and daisies and everything, but you learn from it and you tweak it out. So that's kind of how it started.
Well, that's such a great attitude and a really inspiring story. We'll dig down into some of the details now, if we may. I found you first through a great case study on copyblogger.com, which was highlighting how you've used the content marketing to grow your business. So let's get into some details. What exactly is your strategy, and can other local businesses emulate your model?
In one word, yes, absolutely. So I have a house and pet sitting company. So what my business does, it's very micro. We only service like a 10-mile radius. It's very, very small. But a lot of people around here are very, interested in things like what pet events are going on, or they're what we call yappy hours, when people get together on the patio with their pets and have a beer and eat some food and, just hang out with one another. It's also, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, where it gets up to 115 degrees. So there's lots of health concerns for pets and walking and their pads of their feet being burned, or leaving a pet in a car when it's only 60 degrees. Well, here things heat up really fast because we're closer to the equator. There's no clouds. It gets hot here in Arizona. So my strategy is simply to teach people and to use my website as a soapbox that I can stand up there and be an advocate for whatever needs to happen. Interestingly enough, the more I do this, the more people come directly to me and say, hey, can you help us get the word out about our grand opening? We'd love to get the word out about this new Pet Dental Awareness Month, or things like that. So I kind of took on more of a reporter role, much kind of like what you do with your website. You look for relevant things that are out there, and then you bring it to your readers or your viewers.
That's a great strategy. So there's really a rich vein of informational posts that you can do based around what people are interested anyway around the pet niche.
There is, and one of the most important things that I see a spike on my website. We get an average of 200, 250 hits a day. But on the days that I do what the copy blogger called newsjacking, which is a pet food recall comes out, and they're hardly ever on the news. Like, maybe they were on the news a few years ago when there was like a big uproar about it, but there's probably a pet food recall once a month. As a pet parent, if you see something like that in your news feed or your email, you're going to click on it. And even if it doesn't affect you, it's very valuable, so you might share it with other people. My website hits go up to 500 or 600 the day that I have a pet food recall that I post. So by connecting myself to other pivotal movers and shakers in the pet community, like on a national level, it makes it a lot easier for me to be the news source and trust, which is the number one thing that we sell as pet sitters. We sell trust, peace of mind, and security, because any of our clients could go get, a 15-year-old kid next door to open a door and let a dog outside. But they hire us because they know that we're going to shut that door. The dog's not going to get out. We're going to turn off the alarm. We're going to be there when we say we're going to be there. So by being a trusted resource of news, it helps twofold with potential clients being like, wow, you're a trusted resource. That trust gets built. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So really, in terms of editorial strategy, you're not setting ahead of time, we're going to post X, Y, Z on certain days. You're reacting to the news, and that's giving you that authority. And then off the back of that, you're able to communicate with authority your USP. Yes,
it gives us a real-time conversation with people. For example, the Sochi Olympics that are going on right now. It's currently, February 2014. And we probably all have heard about the stray dogs. And I know in different parts of the world there's stray dogs and things, but there's not here in America. You don't have stray dogs running around in the middle of the neighborhoods, let alone would we ever shoot the stray dogs. Yeah. So there was a huge uproar. And then for some of the Olympians, trying to rescue them and save them and all that kind of thing, what I do is I see that as an opportunity to create discussions. So I haven't exactly blogged about it yet because I don't plan these things. So I talk about it on Twitter or maybe on Facebook to open up the floodgates of the conversation. But it's not strict. It's not like, okay, I have to get this out on Monday and it has to be strict and rigid, because that's not what a normal conversation is. You and I have an outline here today, but we're also letting it naturally take its course. Sure. So the way that you communicate in your blogs or your social media is the same way with your business. You should have your natural voice, and that develops over time.
So although you don't have an editorial calendar, you do have an editorial strategy, and that is what David Meerman Scott calls this newsjacking strategy. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And the only time I do have an editorial schedule is when I have so much to say and I don't want to bombard everyone with 4 blogs in 1 week. That's when I'll schedule them to come out once a week or something. And that's nice because then you know that you have things hitting the net. But generally speaking, you're correct.
Okay, so we're talking about staying agile, moving quickly with content creation, looking at newsworthy stuff. You've been proactive in growing your team with this as well. You have staff on board. Are they totally geared into this sort of social media and newsjacking strategy you're using?
It's a great question. Yes, my staff knows that if they see anything that comes across their desk that looks neat, they forward it to me. They don't go post it on our Facebook page because I want the opportunity for it to come from the brand's voice, you know? The other thing is that I have built into my business structure incentives for them to blog for me. So I'll give them some topics, or they'll tell me a really hilarious story that happened with a dog, and I'm just laughing on the phone or laughing reading their recap on email. And I'll say, hey, you know what? This would make a great blog. Why don't you write a blog for it? And there's a structure built in where they do get compensation for that. So that idea came from one of my mentors. I know we're going to talk about this later, but one of my mentors had given me that idea. And it's just so true, because if you have people on staff, give them an incentive, and they're knowledgeable too, and they have a voice, and they get questions from your clients or your customers, and they have a lot of knowledge inside of themselves too. But it also builds camaraderie. They kind of feel like they're a part of the voice now. They're not just a worker, you know, they're a part of the business and the brand and the growth. And it really creates a great sense of community.
Looking at the posts themselves, is there any kind of specific length you write to? What do you do with your titles? How do you hook people into that content to get the eyeballs on the pages?
Great question. And that's something I'm always struggling with and learning, you know, creating those good headlines. When I first started, I was keyword stuffing. It was like, why your pet sitter in Scottsdale thinks you should walk your dog. Like, really? I didn't really know what I was doing, you know. But does that mean I went back and deleted them all or changed them? Absolutely not. You know, that stuff's out there. But what I've done is I've developed and grown as I've gotten better. So again, just by being a constant student of life, you know, the versus posts, you know, pet boarding versus pet sitting, or the top 5 places to walk your dog in Scottsdale. Headlines that will grab your attention, or 4 things you better make sure your pet sitter does not do, or something that is provocative in a way and engaging. Because oftentimes, I'm sure you see this a lot, people will share things without even reading them just because the title sounds so great and it sounds like it's a valuable piece of information.
Let's look at other businesses and perhaps what they can learn from you. Really, in every industry we're talking about, because a lot of small businesses struggle with content creation and content marketing strategy. You're really saying, reading between the lines, anyone can do this. They just have to be reactive to the news and create real engagement with real people in their marketplace.
Yes, and in addition to that, also not necessarily in news, because we all know sometimes there's slow news days, you know, so you don't have to necessarily always be getting stories from the news. You can get inspiration, but maybe you see, okay, as a pet sitter, we're taking care of a cat and we're scooping cat litter laws. Yeah. And as you scoop that cat litter, sometimes we take our t-shirt and put it over our nose because this cloud of smoke comes up and we're like, Yeah. So by being aware of what's around you, you kind of like put your news reporter hat on, and here comes a blog about what is the best cat litter, you know, or the 5 best cat litters, you know, or the pros and cons between clay cat litter and crystal cat litter. So now you're like actually offering it up to people. People don't even know there's all these different types. They just figured that there's this clay cat litter and you're going to have to eat a puff of smoke every single time you sift the litter. So by being aware of what's around you and knowing, you know, maybe you're walking a dog and it's a 200-pound dog, but it feels like nothing's on the end of the leash because you have a gentle leader harness. So you kind of look at it and you're like, wow, you know, what's a gentle leader harness? I thought there was only one kind of leash. There is so much stuff that you in your business know about. And it might be boring or nonchalant to you, but there's always an opportunity to teach people about everything that you do. You just have to open up your eyes and your mind to it. So it's not just the news, but it's also being available, like, mentally, and being present in every single day that you or your staff are working.
Okay, so I've just come to your blog and I've read about a certain type of harness or leash or whatever it is. I'm reading your article. I'm getting a sense of the authority and trustworthiness of your business. I like you and what you do. How do you convert that viewer, that tire kicker, into a customer who's going to come to you and pay you some money for your services?
Right. Well, I'm going to answer this two different ways. One, I'm going to talk about the pet sitting, and two, I'm going to talk about the coaching because it's separate.
Okay.
The pet sitting laws, my goal isn't for you to read a blog and then hire us, because the chances of you going away this weekend, it being that timely, are slim to none. If you're just browsing on social media, you're connected with us because you know that we're a safe place that you can obsess about your cat or dog or learn about stuff about your cat or dog. You know, it's an interest of yours. That interest that our community has and provides and likes because they go to our blog gives us that popularity and that authority in Google, where we have that steady flow of the 200 to 250 hits a day. I can't say that about some of my, I hate calling it competition, but the other people that do what I do in my city. You know, the ones that have a website that has 7 pages and it's just sitting out there and it never changes, nor is content added to it. So my goal for the pet sitting is to get the excitement generated, the value generated, so that when you are a potential client going after those 3 things I told you at the beginning, trust, security, and peace of mind, you're going to be like researching us online. You're going to go to our Facebook and be like, wow, like they're consistent with their message. Wow, okay, they have this blog, people are saying this about them, people are engaged with them, they look like the cool kid. I'm going to go to their website. Wow, it's robust and I can get every answer I possibly need before I could even call them, which makes me feel even more safe and trusting them. So those blogs create that foundation that when a potential client is looking for us and doing their research online, they're going to see all of that stuff. Now, with Jump Consulting, my coaching company, mostly aimed at pet sitters around the world, that's a little bit different because there are more calls to action at the bottom of things. There are more like, here's a story about how I had employees. Hey, here's my employee quick start program. You should get it. Or a pop-up just saying, hey, download my free ebook on networking, barking up the right tree, and you can be connected with me. And then I send out the emails that lead to the blogs. It's a whole funnel there, you know? But it's kind of like what Gary Vaynerchuk says, the author of Jab, 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 Right Hook. You give them great information, great information, great information. Here's the sales pitch. Great information. You know, it's a choo-choo train.
Yeah, sure.
So you have different strategies depending on what your end goal result is and what you're selling. And it works 2 completely different ways in both of my businesses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So really,
Great.
People looking for a one-size-fits-all situation with this, they should just take a step back and say, look, who are my target audience? Where do they hang out? How can I approach them? What are the questions they're asking? And get those questions answered on the blog, and then say, okay, what are the likelihood, like you say, of them coming straight to me for business right away? Or, you know, should I just keep them top of mind and then they'll know where I am in future? So that sounds like something anyone can do.
Exactly. And I think the thing that a lot of people miss is, well, how is this blog on pet sitting going to get me a client? It doesn't work. You know, I was speaking with a vet the other day, a veterinarian in the area, and he's like, but how is this blog going to get people in the door? And I'm like, if you're looking for this one blog to get you a new customer, that's not going to happen because it doesn't work that way. It's very slim to none that it's going to happen that way. You have to know what you're selling. So are you selling dog walking or are you selling trust? Are you selling lawn care or are you selling a healthy alternative that your pets aren't going to die from my chemicals, you know?
Yeah.
Or are you selling, you know, air duct cleaning? Or are you selling a healthy home environment where you won't have to worry about your children breathing in terrible air? Once people get out of themselves and realize like the whole so what factor, like so what you're a dog walker, so what you're a landscaper, why should I care? Once they can answer that, figuring out how that blog or their voice or that sales funnel is going to work is going to be a whole lot easier. What I find is that so many people just want to sell, and think that they are the center of the universe and everybody should care as much about their business as they do. And it doesn't work. And they're always trying to pitch. And they're not trying to build that relationship. And a blog or content creation or articles or whatever you want to call them is such a huge opportunity to create that virtual relationship and voice that it can be so powerful. And I just get excited about it, as you can hear. And I just hope that people can really understand that.
The thing that I often find difficult persuading clients about blogging, like you gave the example of the vet, is a measurement thing where, as you say, it's difficult for them, if they're perhaps old school, to quantify, okay, I want that to lead directly to there and that equals more sales. But it has to be said, if you are finding a company online every time you're on social media, every time you're searching Google, and they're out there, as you say, creating these relationships, 6 months down the line, and this isn't measurable, you're thinking, okay, I'm going away for the weekend, I need someone to cat sit for me or house sit or dog sit. Oh, I know where to go. But it's very difficult to measure that specifically, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because even further with my example with the vet, he goes, well, I'll be able to know because we ask everybody how they heard about us. I was like, they're gonna say they heard about you on Google. They're not gonna say, and then I went to Facebook, and then I read your blog, and then I felt good. Google is like everything, you know? And that's what people are gonna say. So you're exactly right. It's very difficult to track. And that's why the relationship will last a lot longer than a business card or a pitch. And that's what I always say to people.
Okay, so people need to be putting all their efforts into this and start a blog if they're not doing one, and revive their old blog and get writing if they've let it fall by the wayside. Okay, so let's have a look at the subject matter of these posts. I guess you give audiences more of what they like. If something has a traffic spike, if it gets shared a lot on social media, do you do more of that kind of content?
Yes, a perfect example are the pet food recalls, what I was talking about earlier. It's I put them out to all of my networks. So there's local networking groups here, there's local veterinarians, there's local groomers. And I take that article and I share it with all of them, rescue groups. And then I email them and I say, hey, can you please share this? This is really great information. They're like, of course, because we don't have the time to post it or do it. We'll do it. We'll absolutely share it. It's newsworthy. It's helpful to our communities.
How many posts are on your blog at the moment?
Over 300.
How long did that take you to put those up?
Oh my goodness, probably about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so this is a bit of a curveball question. How long do you think that top of mind process took for the penny to drop for your audience having gone and consumed your content? Was it 6 months, a year?
Chicken or the egg? So here's the thing. When I first started, I stunk at it. I was so pitchy and boring and like, why would you even want to read me? I didn't even want to read me, you know? I mean, and then I've read things that after 100 posts, you're good. I really think it comes down to your voice and your relevancy. You could really be top of the mind awareness after 50 blogs if you are a great writer and know what you're doing. It takes longer for some, it takes shorter for others. And it really is a curveball question because I don't really believe that there is a true answer to that. I think you just have to keep doing what I said at the beginning. Sometimes you're going to get knocked down or discouraged or you're not going to feel like writing it. But getting it out there is better than not getting it out there. And something that Marcus Sheridan, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, says, you know, it's the difference between the A student and the C student. You know, I know right now, if you were to go to callbellas.com, you will find spelling errors all over my website and blogs. Hopefully not so much on the main website, but at least the blogs. And I don't have the time for an editor to go through it. I'm not the best writer. I definitely would get slammed by the AMA or whatever they are who dictates when you're supposed to use a punctuation or a period or cap locks or whatever, you know? But I don't let that stop me because it's become part of my voice. And my mother shakes her head at me all the time because she's like, you just sent out an email and there was 2 spelling errors. And I'm like, oh, well, it's out there now.
Yeah. What strikes me about what you're saying, though, is personality. You've got bags of personality. That's coming across in your branding. You're basically answering clients' questions and responding to news items and getting inspiration from your local area, but you're bringing your personality to bear on it, and people don't buy necessarily when they're buying services. They don't buy the company, they buy the person, and I think you've got that sussed out.
Yes, exactly.
You're listening to the Content Champion Podcast, showcasing the best content marketing strategies across the web.
Okay, let's move on to email marketing. How do you use email in your content marketing strategy, and what results do you see from it?
Okay, I'm going to tell you what I used to do and now what I do, because I think it'll be an interesting compare and contrast. So I was one of those people that are like, oh, here's my monthly email newsletter. Here's a beautiful template. Here's a sidebar. Here's some clicking and some specials. And how great are we? Okay. And then like 2 years ago, I realized, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I actually got rid of my iContact that had 3,000 emails in it that I had gotten from mortgage companies, I got from event sites. I mean, I put everybody that I ever could on this thing. And the open rate was like 30% and nothing really came of it. And I was just like, I need to just start over because this is just crappy. And I have a client management system where everyone signs up with us online and I have all that. So I started fresh with just those people. And I was like, those are really the only ones that matter and the ones that have come to my events. And I got Aweber, which I just love. It's more expensive than iContact, but it really, I don't know. It's a preference.
Yep.
And I like using that. And I've created broadcasts and campaigns where, certain people that might open certain things will get another follow-up email X amount of days afterwards. I've changed my voice on them. So now it's, hey guys, I got 2 quick things for you. Thing number 1, blah, blah, blah. Thing number 2, blah, blah, blah. My margins are really thin, so you can scroll and read it through while you're sitting at a stoplight in your car. Oh my gosh. I know we shouldn't be doing that, but the reality is that we do that. And I need to get you my message in 10 seconds or less and give you the option to go and read the full blog. You know what I mean?
Sure. So
that's what I've done with the pet sitting. And like even today, I just emailed all my clients and I said, it was probably less than like 70 words. It was, hey, happy Valentine's Day. We love you. Click here to see a funny picture of Rocco, which is my dog, my office manager. And make sure you stay connected with us on Facebook because there was just another pet food recall last week. So I'm telling them not just like me on Facebook, but why, what kind of value they could get. With my consulting company, I just got back from my honeymoon and we got married in America and also in Macedonia. My husband's from Macedonia. And then we went to Rome. And while I was gone for a whole month, I learned a lot of lessons and I kind of made notes in my iPhone. And these new emails that people are getting, they start off on my email with a quick little story about us in Rome and how I had this aha moment. And then click here to read more, which is the blog of what the aha moment meant and how you can relate it to your business. So personally, I'm trying to focus more on storytelling this year because I am starting to realize we all have so many stories and it just makes you that much more personable. So my emails definitely evolved. Again, I don't have a schedule, like you will get one on July 1st and August 1st and September, It doesn't happen that way. I speak when I have something to say. And I think that way it kind of keeps it a little fresh for at least the pet sitting people. I'm not going to be hammering them every single time I have a new blog up because that's a lot, but I might hammer them every single time I have a pet food recall because I want to keep their pets safe as their trusted pet sitter.
So really what's coming out of that as well is that when people say, how do we set ourselves apart with the communications that we're putting out there, start with you, start with yourself, start with your stories, as you say, and then it'll all flow from that. And that's very compelling. And again, something that anyone out there can do. Okay, we talked about him a couple of times. There's loads of people. You mentioned aha moments in there. John Lee Dumas I talked to. He's a great guy, another great guy. Let's talk about mentors. And Marcus Sheridan I've talked to as well. Fantastic, enthusiastic guy. How have these people helped you? And, how have you learnt from the best, as it were?
Back in 2012, we had our first pet sittingology conference in Las Vegas. It was for a bunch of pet sitters. We only had 12 there that first year.
Right.
And Marcus Sheridan was a speaker, and that man totally made me do a 180 in my blogging. I downloaded his ebook on thesaleslion.com, which is free and chock full of crazy light your butt on fire motivation. But it's all of his own stories. It's all of his own experiences, which go back to what we were just saying, like our stories, I got to hang out with him again last year when he came back for our next conference. We all went out to dinner. My business partner, Josh, and we've done a couple, maybe 5 webinars or so with him. I have the utmost respect. He's just such a motivating force to me, which is great because I find myself doing that for a lot of other people. So it's great when I can find that inspiration from him. Also, Josh Carey, he's petsittingology.com. He is incredible. He's taught me a lot about the voice on my emails. I really believe, I kind of take the saying, birds of a feather flock together to the next step and say, figure out what kind of bird you are, and then you'll find your flock. And I think that's really true because so many people are flying around, trying to get into a flock that they don't quite belong in. And it's okay because it's right for some and it's wrong for others. And what you got to do is just figure out what's right for you. And that's kind of the number one thing that I've been taught. I mean, this wheel, it's not really being reinvented. It's out there. People are doing it, like yourself and like the copy blogger folks and Pet Sittingology and Marcus and Gary Vaynerchuk and all those people. It's just a matter of how are you going to put your stamp on it, tell your story, and create your voice. When you're not true to yourself and when you don't know who you are, which is the number one thing that my business taught me, it made me figure out who I was and what I wanted. Because my business was not going to be successful unless I knew what I wanted. And I made my business work for me and not me working for it. And everything's so interrelated, Laws. I mean, I'm just so excited talking about this. But you have to surround yourself by people that you want to be like, that encourage you. And you can't get overwhelmed that, oh my gosh, they're putting out so much content. I missed it. I can't keep up with them. I can't read that whole book. Truth be told, I have not read Marcus's book cover to cover yet. But every single time I have some time, I sit down and I read it. Or I start from the beginning because it was so good. It's okay to be overwhelmed. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. But you just got to really stay true to yourself and figure out what works for you. Sorry to go off on that tangent, but it's true.
I was just sitting thinking I want to let you talk because it's really inspiring. People listening to this, it's what they need to hear. People do get down about what they're doing, and it's great to hear people like you and Marcus, talking about it so positively. And that's, I guess, why mentors are so important. So perhaps, if people want to get a mentor, there'd be none better than Marcus's blog, thesaleslion.com, because it's a great place to start.
One of his strategies, Laws, as you know, is they ask, you answer. So every one of us as business people, what did the caller ask you, the last person who called you? How much do you charge? How does your service work? These questions are so ingrained and boring almost for us as owners because we answer them all day long. But do you have a blog answering it? Now, to take it a step further, it's like, for example, I'm going to always take it back to the dog walking. It's just easy. How long do you walk my dog for? Okay, I could write a blog on that, but I could also write a blog on dog walking leashes. Then I could write a blog on the best ones. Then I could write one on the worst ones. Then I could write one on dog walking parks, dog walking trails. Just because you wrote about something once doesn't mean you can't write about it again and again and again. And if anyone is a follower of Marcus, I tell him that he should call everyone his cubs if he's the sales lion. So if any of his cubs are really listening to what he's doing, we've all heard that river pool story, many times. But every time you hear it, you get something different from it. So taking a page from Marcus's book, it's your story is unique. And we all have our stories. And just because you tell it once doesn't mean that everybody heard it or that they're going to hear it the same way they heard it the second time. So don't be afraid of being what you feel like is a broken record, because you're still blessing or encouraging or inspiring people every single time you say it. So I was using that as an example with the dog walking, because just because you write about, you answer one question about dog walking, it doesn't mean that you can't write 6 blogs all on the same topic, just from a different angle or a different story. Nor does it mean that you only have to share it once. You could share that once every 3 months, and there's going to be people that are going to be like, wow, that's brand new. So when I don't feel like blogging, I might be sharing some of our old content, and people are seeing it for the first time. You're building an arsenal, and just keep telling your story. Don't be afraid to tell your story. And you have multiple stories.
Yeah, I got a lot of emails about the They Ask You Answer strategy after that Marcus podcast. And I advise everyone to go out and do that, because it's a fantastic strategy. So mentors are important. You're kind of turning into a mentor yourself because you're so inspiring. Let's talk about Jump Consulting in that context. You've been very successful promoting a house and pet sitting business, and you're now teaching those techniques to others in the industry. Why did you set this up, and how can it help people?
Okay, so I set it up in 2007. At that time, the pet sitting company won the National Business of the Year award given by a national association. At that time, I was on some message boards. This was pre-Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff. And people started coming to me, and I realized that I really love talking to people. I love dissecting their business. I love inspiring, motivating, and challenging. Those are my 3 goals in life. If I can do that somehow every single day, it could turn a crappy day of my own into like the most amazing day ever. I love seeing people succeed and break through those boundaries. And, I'm not formally trained in any way. I'm not going to proclaim that, I'm under the teachings of so-and-so, or I have a human communication degree from ASU, and I love people and I love business. And I come from a line of a lot of entrepreneurs. So, and I've built my own stuff sustainably. So those are my credentials. And when I first started, I called it Bella's Business Consulting. But remember how I said it forces you to figure out who you are? I was like, whoa, I want to be separate from the pet sitting. I don't want to just only do pet sitters, although it's the easiest way for me to attract people at this time. And so I called it Jump Consulting, because I believe that starting or expanding a business of any kind is like jumping out of an airplane. And the tagline is, who's got your chute? Because in my mind, if I work with you or whoever I work with, we've got their chute. We're going to make sure they don't splatter on the ground. We're going to make sure they get on their target. They open up their parachute on time. We've got their back, literally, And I came to that epiphany through skydiving. And if you go to my Jump Consulting website, you'll see my skydiving video. And it was an amazing opportunity in my life, and it really inspired me. And so now I specifically work with businesses, trying to help them with systems and processes. I'm not a social media company. I'm not going to sit there and post on your social media for you, because I kind of feel like that's like wearing your underwear. It's uncomfortable and weird.
Yeah.
I don't know your voice. But I will motivate and inspire you and get you start to thinking about what you could blog about, or how you can get a system in place so that you're not working 8 hours a day in your business, or how you can come up with different marketing techniques. I was just speaking with someone yesterday who are like, well, we need to get more clients, and I'm sick of the booths, and I'm sick of the emails, and I'm sick of all this stuff. And I'm like, well, how do you do your emails? They said, well, we do newsletters, and we use iContact, and we have these great templates. And I'm like, boring. And then they go, and we do these booths, and we give out, collars and leashes and keychains. And I'm like, boring. I'm like, where does that relationship start? And how do you keep going with it? Like, oh, then we give them like a coupon. And I'm like, yeah, still, who cares? Like, you need to build relationships. You need to do everything that we were just talking about. You need to jab, 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 right hook, You need to do those things to get them to like you first, and then they'll buy from you, maybe. I mean, you're not going to buy from somebody unless you trust them, chances are, especially in a service-based industry like I'm involved in. So the coaching started on accident. And when I realized I was on the phone for 2 hours talking to someone about from A to M to B to Z, like all over the place, we were both exhausted and overwhelmed. And that's when I really started creating lessons and guides. So we have like a pricing strategy guide. Again, they ask, you answer. The most common questions that are asked in the pet industry, I have teleseminars or workbooks for you to work through them. I help people gain employees and do phone sales, a whole script on the phone on how to get them talking about their babies and really loving you and wanting to trust you to stay at their house. So the list kind of goes on, but it's an evolving process, and it's always by listening to what's going on there and caring more about others than myself, because it'll direct me on how to go if I'm really in tune with the audience.
You're doing so much. How do you manage it all? That's one of the questions I was thinking then.
Nobody believes me when I say this, but I don't really work that much. My pet sitting company is run on an hour a day. And the consulting, I do spend a lot of time on Facebook, like answering people's questions in my private groups. But I do it when I want to. I call it riding the wave. Like, you're surfing and, there's no waves coming up. Here comes a wave. Okay, I'm going to ride it. That wave is my energy. So yesterday I was feeling, I have bad allergies right now and everything's in bloom. It's going to be 90 degrees this weekend. And I just felt so run down because my body's trying to fight these allergies. So I laid on the couch all day. And after this, I'm going to go to lunch with my friends and then celebrate Valentine's Day with my husband. And it's Friday at 10:46. I answered some emails this morning. If emails or calls come through, I'll take those. But those take like 5 minutes each, Systems and processes are what will give any business owner their time back. And then also being cognizant of how you spend your time. The biggest example I can give you, Laws, in the pet sitting world, you can do one of two things. When a new client calls, you can sit there and take down all of their information and then take down the bookings. And then maybe you're walking a dog and you have to go home or you have to remember when you get home to schedule them. Or you can get scheduling software where you tell the client, I'm out walking a dog, please go online and book it and update your information. And when I get home, I'll click approve and you'll get an approval. That cuts down on so much time, hiring your weakness. I have a bookkeeper who I adore. We meet once every 2 weeks. She helps me keep in line with things. I'm not sitting here trying to record expenses and figure out payroll and what taxes need to be paid and what just changed with the government and how that affects things. I don't worry myself with that stuff. I spend my time wisely.
Lady of many talents, tell me about Bark Soup.
Bark Soup, that gives me the chance to run my mouth. Josh, my business partner from Pet Sittingology, and I, we're going to be starting our 3rd season here in the next month. We haven't posted the new dates yet, but anyone can go to petsitting.tv and they can listen to all of our past podcasts. That's basically just answering people's questions in our industry. We're going to change up the format just a little bit this next season, but we get on and we, chat for an hour every 2 weeks and then post it. And the best thing is that it's out there forever. So anytime, pet sitters are walking dogs, they can put on their iTunes and stick in their earbuds and listen to us. It's just a great medium to get our message out there and get people excited and do what you and I are doing right now.
And where do you see things going over 2014 business-wise? What have you got planned?
You know what? I have no idea. My goal in life has always been to be a great wife and hopefully a mom one day. And my businesses have always been developed around that. That's where my values are. So God willing, whatever happens in my future, my businesses are going to adapt around that. Last year was a year of growth that I was striving for. This year, I'm having fun, enjoying life, and keeping things going. So I don't have any huge plans. I just want to be happy, and I want to make sure that my businesses continue to make me happy.
And that's what most people want. I mean, that is there in a nutshell what most people want. And talk about being a good partner. Luckily, it is Valentine's Day as we speak. My rose has arrived just in time for me and my wife to have supper tonight with some friends. I was getting really worried there throughout the day because it's about nearly 6 o'clock here now. I was thinking, they're not going to deliver them. But luckily, they've arrived, so I'm in the good books. Okay, lastly, just before the PS question, could you remind us where we can find all your companies online, please?
Yes, of course. So you can go to callbellas.com. That's CALLBELLAS.com. That's the pet sitting company. And you can tell just from the first page, there's a picture of me upside down with my dog standing over me that just says, we look at pet care a different way. That's what I mean by the different voices and the different ways that you can promote your company that no other pet sitting company you're going to go to is going to have something like that. And then the other one is jumpconsulting.net. That's the consulting company that I can help anyone on. And if you want to listen to those podcasts, it's just petsitting.tv. And you can, poke around on there too.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Okay, this is what I call the PS question. Could you please share one advanced content marketing strategy with my listeners, something they can take action on right after this show?
Don't be afraid. Start writing. I want you to think of the question you get asked all the time, and I want you to write the answer to it. And I want you to promote it on all of your social media. And if you're daring enough, send an email out to your people saying, I just wanted to make sure that you get the answer to our most asked question. Something along those lines. Start out little, because once you get those little victories, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to keep going and keep going. Because then you're going to start motivating yourself and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, my website hits just went up 50 today because I just posted something. Wow. Let's see what I can do next week on something else, And just keep learning from people. Don't stop learning.
Well, that's a fantastic strategy. And look, Bella, thank you very much for a very inspiring interview. I wish you all the best with everything you're doing. And I think people can learn a lot from you. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Laz, and happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you. Thank you, Bella. So there we have it, folks. That was session 19 of the Content Champion podcast. Thanks again to Bella Vasta for an inspiring interview. You can find this podcast on contentchampion.com, the BlackBerry Network, Stitcher Radio and iTunes, and I'd love to get your reviews on iTunes if you like what I'm doing. Thanks very much for listening, I really appreciate it. And until next time...
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the Content Champion.